welcome to this video. Today I'm going to give you a tour of my new Google Sheets social media content calendar. I already have other social media products, but I wanted to create one that was simpler. So this one is contained in one tab, and then you can create as many copies of this one tab as you need. So the way this works is you're going to create your content plan in this table. You're going to set a date for each piece of content, and then you're going to be able to visualize your content plan in this calendar right here. So that's the basic functionality, but then there's also a couple extra features that I added. You're going to be able to add other important dates into the calendar so you can visualize them along with your content plan. So this is great if you want to keep in mind holidays, for example, or any other special events that you have going on in your business and you want to take them into consideration when you're creating your content plan. And then as a little extra, I also have this section over here. So in your table, everything is horizontal, but if you would like to take a look at each post individually, you just set the post number over here, and then all the post information is going to be pulled into this view automatically. And finally, I also included a tab where you can save all of your ideas without committing them to a specific date or a specific anything. If you have an idea, you can just save it in here, and whenever you're ready to use it, you can just copy it and paste it into your content plan. So I'm going to start by giving you a quick overview of how everything works, how everything is connected, and then I'm going to deep dive into every section by starting out with a blank file and showing you how you can use the settings tab to customize your template. So if you're interested, you can just keep watching, and I'm going to leave the link to purchase this in the description, but you can also just watch this video, get inspired, and build your own layouts. So let's get into it. The main feature of the template is the content calendar tab. So you're going to create your content plan in this table right here. And these first 3 columns are fully customizable and they can become whatever you want them to become. You have full control over the title and you have full control over the elements that are going to be shown inside these dropdowns. So you customize that in the settings tab, and I'm going to show you how later in the video. But just remember that these 3 things can become anything you like. And then you have a space where you can add the general idea of what this post is going to be about so it can be shown in the calendar. And once you set a date, these 4 columns will be pulled automatically into the corresponding day in the calendar. And you also have control over whether these 3 columns will be shown or not, but I'm also going to talk about that later. This is the basic information, and this is what's going to be shown in the calendar. And then you also have a couple other columns that you can use to keep other relevant information. So you have a drop down. This is also fully customizable. You decide the elements in here, but you have a drop down to track the status of that post. You also have a space to add a caption, a call to action, and hashtags. So whatever you add in these 3 cells will be joined together automatically in this column right here. So you can copy all of these 3 as a single text from this cell, and then you can paste this somewhere outside the spreadsheet. And then you have 2 extra columns that you can use for text or you can use for images if you like. And then you have a checklist over here, so you can use this however you prefer. I thought about 2 different scenarios, but you can come up with your own. So I thought you could use it to track repetitive steps. So for each post, if you follow a repetitive process, something like planning, creating the script, creating an image, adding a caption. So you can see that up here, some examples that I added. If you would like to track that as a checklist, that's available. Another idea would be if you want to track the different platforms in which you have reposted this piece of content. So if you mainly create stuff for Instagram, you plan for that, and then you can add other platforms up here and you can track whether or not you have reposted them on that platform. So that's 2 ideas that I came up with, but you can use this however you prefer or you can ignore it, totally up to you. So if you scroll to the right, you have your calendar. And as I mentioned, this basic information that you added over here, your custom drop downs and your idea text, that's going to be shown in the calendar. And it starts off blank, so you have full control over the week that you want to see at the top. All you need to do is double click here and set your start date. So this is useful in case you want to always keep the current week at the top. And today is February 27th. So as you can see, the current day is being highlighted and the current week is also being highlighted. And every post set for the current day will be highlighted over here as well. I didn't add it in the day so it wouldn't be too flashy. I added it in the post number. So you'll know that post is assigned to the current day if the post number changes color. And if you would like to highlight a specific date, for example, March 6th, you can double click on this highlight date cell, select a date from the calendar, and that date will be highlighted in the calendar, and then the posts assigned to that date will also be highlighted. So that's there if you need it. And then if you scroll to the right, you're going to see the other important dates table. So as I mentioned, I wanted you to be able to merge together your content calendar with any other important dates that are relevant to your content planning. So if you have a sale going on, if there's a holiday, if you're launching a new product, so anything that's relevant to your content planning, I wanted you to be able to also see it in the same calendar. So that's what this table is for. And for example, if I set this to March 6th, new product launch, you're going to see that you have these 3 posts. So you can see the post number over here. And then whenever there's no post number, that means that's an event. And finally, you have this specific post view. If you would like to take a look at a specific post and see all of your information in a more comfortable view, all you need to do is set the post number over here. So this starts off empty, and whenever you input a post number, all the information relevant to that post will be pulled into this view, including the checklist. So this tab is the main feature of the template, and you can create as many copies of this tab as you need. The table contains 150 rows, so you don't have to use them all, but after 150 rows, you have to create a new tab to start over. And it's very easy. I added these 2 tabs over here. These are your blank originals, so you're never gonna edit these ones directly. These are only there so you can create copies from them. So if you need a new copy, all you have to do is right click and select the option duplicate, and then you can double click here and rename this to anything you need, and then you can build your own structure. So you could create 1 tab for each month, you could create 1 tab for each quarter, 1 tab for every 2 weeks, or even 1 tab for a year if you're not posting that often. So this is completely undated and you have full control over the structure that you would like to follow. And as a little extra, I also added an idea brain dump tab. So basically this is just a place where you can save your ideas whenever you get them without having to commit them to a specific month or any specific tab. You just have an idea and you can save it over here. And once you're ready to use it, you can just copy these 4 columns. So these 4 columns are exactly the same as the ones in the content calendar. So you can just copy them and then paste them on any tab that you need, assign a date, and then you can start working with it. And you can mark this idea as used with this checkbox right here. You can also add a link if you were inspired by any resource online, and you can also create as many copies of this one as you need. You have your blank original over here, so all you need to do is right click, select the option duplicate, and you can keep your ideas organized in as many tabs as you need. And then everything will be customized from your settings tab. So you will customize, as I mentioned, you have your first 3 drop downs. Those are fully customizable, and you do that in this section right here. You assign the title, you assign the elements, and you decide if you want this column to be shown in the calendar or not. You have your status drop down. You have control over the rest of the optional columns, so you can rename this to whatever you prefer. You can also rename this in a different language. For example, you add your steps for your checklist over here, and those will be shown in here. And you can also control how many characters from your idea text will be shown in the calendar. So if your idea text end up being too long, you decide how many characters you want to show. So for example, if I set this to 10, if I jump into the calendar, you're going to see that my ideas get cut off after 10 characters, and then you have these 3 dots over here letting you know that the idea was cut off. But you can also just add a very big number in here and make sure they never get cut off. So you have control over that. And I love pink. I do almost everything in pink, but if you would like to change the colors, you can totally do that. You can click on format, theme, and then you're going to click on customize, and you're going to see the colors that I chose. So just make sure that if you see a dark shade, you change it for a dark shade. If you see a lighter shade, you change it for a lighter shade, just so fonts don't get lost. So I'm just gonna do a quick example. Let's do this purple over here, and then I'm gonna do this other purple, and then I'm gonna do this lighter purple. When I click on done and I close this, you're gonna see how the entire template changed all at once. I didn't change this pink highlights, but I can go back, format, theme, customize, and then you're gonna see this is the accent color that I chose for the highlights of the current day. So you can change that. Maybe let's do this orange. So that changed over there. So you could use your brand colors. You could turn it into a black and white template, anything you like. So that was an overview of how everything works and how everything is connected. And now we're going to jump into a blank file so you can see how everything looks like when you first open the template and how you can customize it to fit your needs. So this is what it looks like when you first receive your template. Initially, it's all blank and you have 4 tabs down here. These two, the ones with these little locks over here, these are your blank originals. So whenever you need to start over on a new blank tab, you can go ahead and create a copy from this one by right-clicking, selecting the option duplicate, and then starting over on a new tab. So I'm just gonna get rid of this one. So you're going to start in the Content Calendar tab, and this one is already a copy from your blank original. So the first thing you have up here is room for a title. So you can add March content plan, for example. And then you have a section over here where you can add any other text that you would like to keep handy, maybe your goal for the month or a quote that inspires you or any other text. So that's optional. And then you have these first 3 columns over here. So as you can see, there are no titles in here. And the place where you're going to add those titles and where you're going to assign elements to these drop downs is the settings tab. So initially these 3 titles, they're empty. And these 3 drop downs, these 3 columns, all of those drop downs are empty. So you decide what you're going to use these columns for. Some ideas could be for your content pillars, it could be platforms, it could be people working on your team, or a list of the products and services you offer. So if a certain piece of content is going to be based on a certain product or service, you could add a drop down for that. So you're going to jump into the settings tab and you're going to add your titles in these cells right here. So we're going to do platforms, content pillars, and format. And then we're going to add some elements in here. So I'm very quickly going to fill this out. So now that I added titles and now that I added elements, if I jump back into my content calendar tab, those are going to be filled out. So my titles were added up here and all of my drop downs now have those elements that I added into these tables over here. So we have our 3 drop downs and then we have room for the idea text. So a day in the life, for example, and then I'm going to add a date. So I'm going to do a date inside this week that we're at right now. So I'm going to do February 29. Today is February 27. And then I'm going to leave it like this and I'm going to jump into the calendar and I'm going to set a start date. So I'm going to start on this week's Sunday. And as you can see, my post is found over here. So you have TikTok as our platform, connection as our content pillar, and then post as our format. And then you have the text that you added in the idea text, which is a day in the life. So if I add a time over here, you add times in this format. You do 10, for example, and then you do a colon, you add the minutes, and then you add either AM or PM. So let's do 10 AM. And if I scroll to the right, you're also going to see the time over here. So you have the time, the post number, and then your first 4 columns. The idea text, that's always going to be shown in here, but you can decide if you want to hide any of these 3 columns. So as you can see right now, I have all 3 columns in here. And if I wanted to hide them, you can use these checkboxes over here. So if you uncheck this, then this column won't be included in the calendar text. So if I jump back into the calendar, I'm not going to see anything except the time, the post number, and the idea text. So you have full control of whether or not these 3 columns are going to be shown in the calendar. And then sometimes your texts can end up being too long. So I'm just going to type in a long text over here. So I added some more text, and if I scroll to the calendar, you're going to see that this is going to get cut off. So it made it as far as welcome to my morning routine, comma, and then everything else is not showing up. So that's because if your text is too long, I'm going to cut it off so you can see more posts in this view, but you have full control over the amount of characters that are going to be shown in here. So if you jump back into the settings tab and you scroll all the way to step 7 over here, you can decide the number of characters that will be shown. So if I add only 10 characters and I jump back into the calendar, you're going to see that the text gets cut off after 10 characters. And if I add a very big number, I'm going to ensure that my entire text is going to be shown in here. So how many characters you show is entirely up to you, but if you have multiple posts per day, I suggest you limit that to a few just so you get the general idea shown in the calendar and not the entire text if your texts are too long and you're posting several times per day. So I'm going to jump back in here and I'm going to add a couple more posts for that same day. So I added 2 more rows, and on purpose, I made sure these weren't in the proper order so you can see how these are going to get sorted in the calendar. So post number 2 is going to be found first, 9 a.m. So if I scroll, you're going to see 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and 11 a.m. And again, if I jump back and I start playing around with these checkboxes, you're going to see how that changes on every single post. And if you have multiple posts per day and you want to get rid of this extra space in between posts, you can use this checkbox right here and that extra space will be removed. And then if you want to highlight a date, you can double click on this cell right here, right after the highlight date label, and then select a date. And it's going to be highlighted in the calendar. And then it's going to be highlighted in your table as well. And as you may recall from our quick overview, you also have this table over here where you can add other important dates. So if I were to add an event for that same day, new product launch, for example, you're going to see how that appears over here. And that date was also highlighted. So that's the basic functionality of how you can customize your 3 custom columns. And then everything else after the time is completely optional. So you have an extra drop down in which you can track the status of your posts, and initially it's going to be empty. So if you want to add elements into that drop down, you're going to jump back into the settings tab, and on step 4 where you see this status label over here, you're going to add elements into this table. So it could be in progress, draft, post. So whatever elements you add in here are going to be shown in your status dropdowns over here. So this section is where you customize your 4 dropdowns, and each of these has room for 50 elements. And then if I jump back into the calendar, I'm just going to select a few items from the dropdowns, and everything else after the time won't be shown in the calendar. So only this section right here, the basic information, is what you're going to see in the calendar, and then everything else is just for your own reference. So you have your status dropdowns, and then you can add a caption over here, and then you have a space for your call to action. So it could be visit my shop, and then you can paste your link in there, for example, and then you have this space where you can manually enter hashtags. And once you start filling out any of these 3 cells, you're going to see this one is updating automatically. So if I add a new caption over here, you're going to see that it appears over here. Call to action, that appears over here. And then hashtags, that appears over here. So what's happening, these 3 texts are getting joined together into a single text. So you can go ahead and copy this column over here, and you can paste these 3 as a single text somewhere outside the spreadsheet. So this is automated and you should never edit it. So it has this gray background to remind you. And then you have an extra 2 columns that you can use however you prefer. And then the titles for all these optional columns, you're going to find those in the settings tab. So you should never change them directly here. If you want to call any of these columns something different, you're going to jump into the settings tab. You're going to scroll to step 5, and you're going to see that you can translate any of the labels that I added by default. So if this one you want to name image, for example, you can change that over here, and it's going to change on your calendar, and everything is also going to change in your blank original, so that whenever you create blank copies, these settings will also be applied to the original and to every copy you create after that. So you could use this for notes, for example, and then you can use this for any other text that you like, or you can also add images in here. So to add an image, all you need to do is select the cell and then click on insert image in cell. Very important that you choose the one that says in cell. And then you can either browse or you can drag a file in here. And then finally, you have a checklist. So there are 7 steps in here. This is completely optional and you can use it however you prefer. As I mentioned before, one option would be if you have a repetitive process that you go through for each piece of content. And another option would be to add your platforms in here. So you can track in which platforms you have reposted each piece of content. The place where you fill this out is in the settings tab. You jump into step 6, and this is where you're going to add your 7 steps. You don't have to use them all, and you don't have to use this section at all if you don't find it useful. So all you need to do is select this area over here right below the number and start typing. And you're going to see how it's going to look like in your tables. Try to keep it short so it still looks pretty. So once you add your texts in here, you're going to see them appear in your content calendar over here. And you can use these checkboxes to track your progress through those steps if you want, or you can use this however you prefer. So after you fill in your table, if you scroll to the right, you're going to see your calendar, and you have full control over the week that is shown at the top. So if you want to keep your current week always at the top, all you need to do is come in here every Sunday, every Monday, and update this so the current week is always at the top. But if you need to look into a different week, you can just change that date over here. And it's important to mention you're only going to see the things that you add into this specific table. So if you create multiple tabs, each tab is going to show its own table in its own calendar. They're not going to be merged together in any way. And then right after the calendar and right after your other important dates table, you have this extra section over here. So if you would like to view your content in a more comfortable way instead of a horizontal row, all you need to do is select a post from this drop down, and then all of its information is going to get pulled automatically into this view. And you can also use this one to copy and paste your caption, call to action, and hashtags all together as a single text to paste somewhere outside the spreadsheet. And this one is highlighted because I'm highlighting a date over here. But if I just delete this and there's no date in here, then nothing's going to get highlighted. So as I mentioned before, you get 150 rows per tab. So once you fill out every single row, you need to start over in a new tab, and you can start over at any point. You don't need to wait to fill every single one out. You could create a structure in which you keep one tab per month, per quarter, and then whenever you're ready to start over on a new tab, all you need to do is jump to your content calendar blank original, the one with this little lock over here, right click and select the option duplicate. You double click in here and you can rename your tab. So I'm gonna delete it. And finally, you have your idea brain dump. It's pretty self-explanatory. The same 3 columns that you customized in the settings tab, these are the ones that you're gonna get on your idea brain dump as well. So you can select elements from your drop downs. You can add your idea. You can also add a link if you were inspired by some resource online. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and copy these 4 cells, and then you can paste them in your calendar, and then you can assign a date and the time, and then keep on working on your content calendar. And whenever you have used the idea, you can use this checkbox to track that. And you can create as many copies of this tab as you like. As I mentioned, you also have your brain dump blank original, so it looks like this. And all you need to do is right click, duplicate, and you can create as many tabs of your idea brain dump as you like. And you can create as many tabs of your content calendar as you like. So that's it for this video. I hope you like it. I hope you find it useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I love talking to you and helping. I'll leave my email in the description. I'll also leave the link to purchase in the description. And if you're interested in other social media products that I've created, I'm also gonna leave the links to those in the description. So that's it for this video, and thank you so much for watching.